Influencer marketing has evolved far beyond vanity metrics. The smartest brands aren't just paying for awareness, they're building performance-driven programs that generate real revenue. The key is finding the right balance between upfront investment and performance-based payouts to drive both reach and ROI. That's a quote from Sarah Days, the Chief Client and Operations Officer at Acceleration Partners, and a sneak peek at today's episode. Hey there, I'm Kerry Curran, Revenue Growth Consultant, Industry Analyst, and host of Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast. Every episode, I sit down with experts to bring you actionable strategies that drive real results. If you're serious about growth, hit subscribe to stay ahead of your competition. Today, we're driving deep into one of the fastest growing marketing channels ever. In From Awareness to ROI, Maximizing Influencer Marketing for Revenue Growth, I sit down with Sarah Days, the Chief Client and Operation Officer at Acceleration Partners. Sarah shares her insider insights on the convergence of influencer and affiliate marketing, revealing how top brands like Target and CVS are pioneering performance-based influencer strategies that drive real business results. We discuss the influencer payment models that actually work, why nano and micro influencers often outperform celebrity creators, and how to seamlessly integrate influencer content into your paid media and demand generation strategy. Be sure to stay tuned to the end, where Sarah shares how you can get started with smarter influencer strategies today. Let's go. So welcome, Sarah. Please introduce yourself and share a bit about your background and expertise.
Excellent. Hi, Kerry. Good to see you. I'm Sarah Days. I am the Chief Client and Operations Officer at Acceleration Partners. We are a global partnership marketing agency with deep roots in affiliate marketing. And over the last 5 years, I've been really building in influencer as well. And I have been with AP for about 14 years now. I was employee number 2 or 3, depending how you look at it. And it's been fun to be on the journey from there to now. We are a global agency of around 300 people all over the world.
Excellent. Well, very excited to have you here today. So I know, Sarah, you've been in the affiliate space for a while, and you've seen the evolution of influencers. So talk about kind of how you've seen the landscape grow and evolve and get more sophisticated, especially when it comes to creators and influencers.
Yeah. I think it's been fascinating to watch, honestly, over the last probably 4 to 5 years now. I think it was around 5 years ago that everyone in the affiliate space was starting to talk about what is this influencer marketing thing that's happening. And it started to come into focus that obviously there's a lot of similarities between affiliate and influencer in terms of it is, a partnership channel and the nature of those relationships. So I think it's been especially interesting probably over the last 3 years or so to see that really now begin to tip into execution. So it went from every stage. I'm sure you saw the same thing. Any conference that you went to, everyone was talking about this convergence coming. And I think even really in the last 2 years, we've started to see that come together, and we've started to see particularly the more sophisticated brands and the brands that we work with who tend to be on the front edge of these things have started to really look at influencer through a performance-based lens. So, when influencers started, obviously it started pretty organically. And then as brands started seeing the opportunity, a lot of influencer marketing, or really 100% of it initially, was all brand building and paying what, depending who you ask, were some obscene kind of upfront, just flat fees. It was all flat fee. It was all brand based. There was really very little tracking. Maybe it was around impressions or reach, but not a whole lot outside of that. And now I think what we're really starting to see, and where the convergence with affiliate starts to come in, is brands are really starting to look at more of a performance-based lens for influencer and tracking more similarly to what we're used to in affiliate, where everything is trackable and we're really looking to drive to specific performance outcomes.
Yeah, it's definitely you've seen a lot of the changes, and kind of both from the talent perspective and the strategy, and both, as you mentioned, like the affiliate versus upfront. And it's interesting to me to see, as I talk to people in the industry, that there's still kind of two camps about like what influencer, where it should play and how it should play in the brand strategy, right? So I've spoken with people who have kind of grown up on the influencer side from a PR lens and see it as a pure play awareness driver, upfront only, flat fee, partnership only. And then those who grew up on the like affiliate influencer side and see the huge value and benefit of having that that commission and that like measurable goal and outcome. And what's interesting to me is, recently at the Creator Economy Live conference, is there's still there's not a standardization. Like the influencer and creator economy has not reached this level of sophistication or maturation where everyone's looking at it the same or measuring it the same, which means it's a really, really cool time for where we are in that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm anxious to fast forward the clock 5 years and see where we are, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I think has been really interesting, and TBD if how this all plays out, but what we are seeing is the brands who we work with who are really leaned into the performance influencer side and who have been, again, probably for the last 2 years almost at this point. And I think about a brand like a Target, where we've already really built out a nice scaled influencer program that is really running through the performance rails. These are the same brands, and there's a handful of others too. These are the same brands that maybe 8-9 years ago on the affiliate side were starting to say, hold on, this can be more than a bottom of funnel channel. Incrementality matters. We can bring in all of the things that right now are just par for the course, table stakes affiliate marketing, but really weren't, again, 7, 8, 9, whatever the measurement is, years ago. It's the same brands who are now saying, hold on, we need our influencer program. We need to actually be able to show some real returns and really look at this. And so, I don't know. We'll see. Is that an indicator of what's to come, that, again, they're just on the front edge of something that other brands will be catching up to in a few years? Or how does it evolve from here?
Yeah, no, and that's a really good question and a good point that you made. So it seems like the brands that are used to being kind of innovators and pushing the envelope and finding new, better ways to test, connecting with their target audience, have picked up on the potential of influencer as a performance play. So yeah, I think it's, to your point, it's going to be it's going to be a while before there's that standardization and kind of maturation, but and it's still evolving too. It might end up looking like something that we don't even know yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will see. I will say we've had several enterprise brands who, on the in-house side, right? So there's obviously what we were working with as an agency and what we're seeing, but then it's also interesting to see how team structures have changed on the internal side, on the brand side. And we have seen a couple where influencer always sat with brand and PR, and now they are moving more into their, their demand gen or their digital marketing teams. And so I think that's an interesting indicator too of how some of these brands are starting to think about things. And then the budget ownership has also shifted accordingly in those cases too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And with that, like, how do you see the influencer and creator teams integrating with the paid social teams? Or
yeah, it's been, what I'll say is the brands who have been the most successful, that is a really, really strong and solid relationship.
Yeah.
There are definitely still some brands that we work with where it's a bit of a turf war. And as in any case, like that doesn't really help anyone. where it's worked really well, those two have been integrated. The other thing that has been part of that is because there's such an opportunity with creator marketing to amplify the creator content with additional paid media dollars on social. And some brands, like we have a whole team who does that at AP on an agency basis. So some brands will leverage an agency just to do that. Yeah. Because they are sort of seeing that it actually works, even though it's similar in that you're still working with Meta and that sort of thing to amplify. It's different in terms of how to make it work really well. And there's a little bit of strategy behind it to your more traditional, just kind of brand first paid social. And again, some brands are leveraging agencies to do that. Others have figured out that difference in-house and internally. And they're working really closely with their paid social team to say, hey, you should take whatever, 30% of the overall paid social budget, and we should use that to amplify creator content because that's what really works. And there's some ways I mean, who knows how the meta algorithm changes over time too. We all know that's a little TBD, but in the current meta algorithm, that is favorable as well in terms of putting your dollars behind creator content on behalf of your brand versus direct brand content. So it's a really good question because it's such an important internal relationship to navigate to really maximize your creator program.
No, definitely. And I think we'll see more and more of that. I know in my previous roles, when I was more involved with social, that was a big part of it, the amplification to use that creator content as your creative. And we're seeing it already in it expand to native and video ads and CTV ads. So it's definitely, there's so much potential because obviously the audiences really love the creator content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the questions that always comes up, and going back to what we were talking about of like, when is it a pure PR play? When is it really a performance play? Like how there is time and place for both across brand strategy. And so talk about kind of what you see as when people say, should I be paying an upfront fee? Should I pay commission? How do you see the right strategic approach there?
Yeah. I think what we found over the last 3 years, and it's been interesting because I think we didn't really know coming into this either when we started kind of working on the influencer side and with creator, and a lot of the brands that we worked with who were starting to try the more performance orientation didn't really know what they were getting into either. And I think what we've learned in testing into this across a wide variety of brands in terms of their scale, brand recognition, the type of product that they're selling is where is the easiest to find success with performance models is with brands who have very high brand recognition, is the most important thing. And ideally also a wider swath of product to work with. Where it's been really difficult is with more sort of niche mid-market, even your mid-market kind of D2C brands. But the biggest thing is the brand recognition. If you don't have brand recognition, you need to be prepared to skew much more of your spend into the upfront flat fee. And if you think about it, it totally makes sense because creators, they have this interesting balance, right? They can only work with so many brands to continue to feel authentic to their consumer. So you have very limited inventory with a successful creator because they can't push out too much paid content or they're going to lose their viewership. And so they're really careful about, okay, where am I doing my collaboration work? And they need to know that it's going to send them some kind of a return. And if they are working with you, even if they really believe in the product, if the product doesn't have as good of brand recognition or is super, super niche, the chance of the creator really making what they need to make in order to make a living on a performance basis is just much, much lower compared to, again, a Target or a CVS or, some of these brands that just have great brand recognition and a ton of product to work with. So that's where we see the most success in the performance model. That being said, absolutely everything is hybrid. So it is rare to get that really, really strong return going. I think that was something that a lot of affiliate marketers, again, when we were talking about this on stages 4 or 5 years ago, I think everyone had this vision that we could just run all these influencers through affiliate rails on a purely performance basis and, is going to unlock a pot of gold. And that's really not the case. It is really leveraging a hybrid model is almost always necessary. It's just what's the balance of the performance-based payout versus the flat fee that can definitely change depending on the brand recognition and scale of the brand. And I think it's really important for brands, and we talk about this a lot up front, when we have brands come to us asking us for services, one of the first questions that we ask them is, what is your budget? And it's not because, we want to be greedy or anything like that. It's because we have learned that without some healthy budget to put behind this and being willing to put some of that in upfront spend, for 99% of brands, it's just, they're not going to see the return that they want if they're not able to kind of put some of that upfront budget in.
Hey everyone, it's me, Kerry Curran. If you're a B2B company that sells to marketers, whether you're an agency, MarTech, or AdTech, and your revenue is either flattening, declining, or just not growing fast enough, I can help. I've spent my entire career selling, marketing, and servicing marketers, so I know firsthand the challenges they face, the buying decisions they make, and what actually moves the needle. The truth is, most marketing strategies aren't built for revenue growth, but mine are. As your fractional chief growth officer, I'll bring revenue-focused marketing strategies designed specifically for selling to marketers, deep expertise in agency, MarTech, and AdTech buying behaviors, modern go-to-market strategies that include everything from brand awareness to driving loyalty and retention, and a track record of doubling and even tripling revenue for B2B companies just like yours. So if you're tired of your stagnant results and you're ready to build a marketing engine that actually drives revenue, let's talk. Visit revenuebasedmarketing.com or connect with me on LinkedIn to schedule a consultation. Together, let's build a smarter, more profitable path forward. RBMA, Revenue-Based Marketing Advisors, we're revenue-based marketing that works.
Yeah, no, I think it's, thank you. That's such a helpful answer to that question. And it really gives more perspective into the fact that you can't just, do one or the other depending on the awareness of your brand. And that goes back to some marketing foundational, 101 of like, your audience needs to have heard of you. They need to believe that you have what they need. And yes, in direct to consumer, that's a little bit faster, but there needs to be that trust, that awareness piece. And if you're not investing in that, whether it's the, more upfront awareness driving influencer strategy, you need to be doing it in other channels as well. So I think that's the other piece, is making sure this isn't like you only need to do this and your sales are going to take off.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I mean, if you think about yourself as a consumer and you think about what you see on Instagram or wherever, whatever your platform of choice is, it's pretty rare that you would see some sort of a paid thing from an influencer that you've never heard of that brand before. And It's going to drive you to convert. Yeah. It's the multi-touch thing. And similar in affiliate, right? But
yeah,
it's the interesting part, I think, with creator that makes it even more relevant is that the creators are going to have a reluctance to even work with you in the first place if you don't have that brand recognition, because it just doesn't make sense for their business. And they're running businesses too, small businesses.
Yeah, no, it's definitely for sure. And speaking of kind of the more niche creators, you'd mentioned before that for performance, scaled performance programs, they have pretty high volume of influencers from the micro nano sphere. So talk a bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, I think what we have found is that, and there's a ton of data out there around this from a lot of different sources, that especially if you are really looking to run a more performance oriented, program, and you're looking at specific ROAS numbers and targets, that the performance driven by more of those nano micro creators, much, much stronger in terms of the ultimate economics versus a lot of your top of funnel. And a lot of that is like they have their following. And if you find the right creator and the right creator for your brand, then they are so much more likely to, they've got a really loyal audience, much more likely to convert. And so we definitely see stronger conversion rates and stronger overall ROAS in those cases, which depends on what your brand's goals are, right? If you were really looking at creator as a brand play or more of a brand play, that may not be as important, which is why in those cases, going to the really, really big influencers or even celebrity influencers may make sense. But if you're trying to look at it through that performance lens, it's typically the nano and micro creators that are going to get you there.
Yeah. And just for the audience, can you define nano and micro for size of following?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think there's a specific number. You're probably looking at like 100,000 followers or less in that range. Again, I think it can really vary, but once you get into the millions, you're probably looking a little bit larger versus when you're under that 100,000, you're a little bit more niche.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And again, it goes back to the quality as well, and like alignment of the audience to your product or what you're selling. So it's so many different ways it fits in. So it's definitely an awesome add to any media plan. One of the questions we get a lot, or that we see, is as influencers evolving, is kind of, do you build it in-house for brands? Do they build it in-house, or do they partner with an agency? So talk a bit about kind of what building your own capability within your agency. What brands who are considering building in-house, what do they need to think about?
Yeah, we've learned a lot here in the last few years. And I think even when we came into doing influencer, we were already scaled as an affiliate agency, and we were running some of the largest affiliate programs in the world. Like, we knew a lot about how to run things at scale. And I think even with that experience, we underestimated what just the operational lift and complexity required to run these, again, especially the scaled influencer and the performance oriented influencer programs. And you have all these different layers. So you've definitely got your tracking, which, in a lot of the affiliate platforms, and they've continued to lean in here, have options to run your influencer tracking, whether you're doing it just through your affiliate program or whether you're using like a creator portal or an add-on sort of thing. So, but there's tracking. There is contracting, which with influencers can be a little bit more nuanced than affiliates. We've definitely learned that also because some influencers work with talent agencies. So sometimes you're contracting direct with the influencers. Sometimes you're contracting with the talent agency, which is a little bit different. And then ultimately the payouts too, and just your invoicing. That has been we've learned a lot about how that works in the influencer space. And if you do some Googling, you see a lot of agencies in particular have really, I think, had trouble with this whole operational side of things. But so to go back to your original questions, though, I think if you're building as a brand, it's really important to be aware of what are those requirements going to be on the technology and operational side, and making sure that you have a smart tech stack lined up to manage all of that for you, whether you go with an all-in-one option, or there's some reasons that some brands tend to, maybe do multiple layers, one for invoicing and one for contracting and that sort of thing. So I think that's really important. And then how you're going to manage your influencer talent. And again, in the performance-based programs where you're working with a lot of influencers, it is definitively not possible to do that in a manual one-to-one way without having to have 4 full-time people in an economic way that's going to make sense for your brand. So I think really thinking about what rails are you going to use there. Again, whether you may go through a platform, it may be through mass email, like however you're going to manage that, really thinking smartly about that. And then I think the other thing, which is important regardless if you're doing it in-house or with agency, again, is making sure that you have the investment and the buy-in and some runway from leadership or whoever is controlling the purse strings, and that you don't want to do what we've seen a couple brands try to do, and I think really struggle with, is we're going to do this really small investment, test, and then scale. It doesn't mean you got to spend millions and millions of dollars, but you need to have a healthy amount to work with as part of your test. And you need to have some runway and some buy-in from your leadership, because you're going to learn some things at the beginning too. It's not automatic that just because you understand your brand well, that you're going to go out and source, especially when you're doing it independently. I think that's where an agency can sometimes help, because agencies will have books of influencers that they know really well, who they work with really well. They know exactly what kind of brands will perform well with them. That's one advantage to working with an agency. If you're doing it in-house, the advantage is you're owning those relationships independently, which is great, especially if you're going for big macro celebrity brand oriented ones. But if you're looking for performance, you might not hit the nail on the head the first few times. You have to find those influencers who are a great match for your brand, and B, who really know how to monetize and know their audience really, really well to kind of get there. And there's a learning curve there for most brands. And so I think having that internal buy-in to say, look, we know there's going to be a learning period. We know we need a little runway to really see how this can work for us, and not have it, shut down because you didn't allocate enough budget or enough time, isn't a place that any marketer would want to be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's complex. And as we talked about earlier, it's still evolving too. So it's finding that niche. So I'm obviously also grew up in the agency space, and really believe in the value that agencies can bring in this scenario. So talk about kind of how you and your teams help your clients, and kind of the benefits of bringing in that partner that has done this and figured out the best practices.
Yeah, so I think it's a few things. One, it is definitely that operational side. Again, we've learned the hard way. We stumbled our way to where we are now too. But I think having a really strong, well-oiled machine of understanding all of the operational complexity and just kind of being able to go is really valuable. To having experience with certain influencers and having a lot of performance data already. And it doesn't mean, obviously, we're not going out to the same influencers for every brand in our portfolio, of course, but if we have places where we know, okay, this influencer, this creator can perform really, really well, and we are working with them on, these two brands, and this one is complementary. When you have the relationship and you can just go in and you already know how that creator can perform, that can work really well for the brands as well. And then the other piece is just the technology and tech stack to source more influencers, which, and then it's not to say that a brand can't go out and buy that, but you have to have that kind of up and running and customized, and really with all the data and metadata that we need to find those, we're able to do that much, much faster, typically as an agency, than a brand sort of starting from square zero. And then obviously there are centralized relationships and, the power of scale in working, where an agency can be working with a creator or with a talent agency across a whole book of brands. It just gives us some stronger negotiating power on the behalf of our brands, which, certainly brands can build that over time. But when you're working with an agency, often that is a little bit more of a built-in part of the deal.
Yeah, no, that's, thank you. No, that's definitely makes sense. And I think to your point of, you understand the landscape, the strategic approach that's going to get you the results that you need, whether it's hybrid, upper funnel, or just driving that scale. So definitely think there's so many benefits here. And so for the people listening that are either have been on the fence about getting testing into influencer, or have kind of toe in the water, started influencer, need to scale, what are the foundations they need to be ready to really make this a key part of their overall revenue and brand strategy?
Yep. So I think some of it comes back to one of your earlier questions, but that internal support and organizational commitment to this is, I can't emphasize it enough. So you want to, yes, have your pitch and have your plan that you can take internally, but then really having that buy-in and that commitment and some money behind it. So budget is definitely the other piece. It is not accurate that you can do this without budget or do it performance only and expect to see scale. And so gathering that, and again, there's a lot of data and research out there. Your agency, if you decide to use an agency, can support you in that pitch, but making sure that you've got the budget that you need and that you're kind of willing to lean into it. And then it's really understanding the operational needs and deciding what is your tech stack going to be. Are you going to go with an all-in-one platform? Are you going to go with an add-on to your affiliate platform if you're owning that side of the business as well? Or are you going to build out your tech stack? But really making sure that you have that prepared, especially to go wider and go more one-to-many, is critical.
Excellent. Sarah, thank you so much. This was super valuable. I loved diving into this with you. And so how do people get in touch with you and your agency if they want to learn more?
Yeah. So for agency, we are just at accelerationpartners.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And again, it's Sarah Days, and easily searchable there too.
Excellent. We'll have that all in the show notes as well. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of your expertise.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Thanks, you too. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're struggling with flat or slowing revenue growth, you are not alone. That's why Revenue Boost, a marketing podcast, brings you expert insights, actionable strategies, and real-world success stories to help you scale faster. So if you're serious about your revenue growth, hit follow, subscribe, and drop a 5-star rating. It helps us keep the game-changing content coming because we're dropping new episodes regularly, and you do not want to miss out.